Folks, you with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the mass immigration to the West. I think any sober, sensible person would agree that it's achieving nothing. It's creating nothing but problems, as many see it, and it's been an experiment that's gone terribly and horribly wrong. And how do we solve it? How do we stop it? How do we turn it around? How do we make this event somehow a benefit? Is it possible to make it a benefit? If not, then how can these people be remigrated back to their countries of origin? So this is a huge subject, of course, so we're only going to touch, I guess, the surface of it in this essay. But having a look, first off, when in the late 90s, when mass migration was originally being very disingenuously, by the way, sold to us by right-wing governments just as aggressively as left-wing governments. I didn't realise at the time that all these people were being controlled by the globalists and were telling us the most horrible lies to justify it. But in Australia, at least, and elsewhere, we were told that the economy is stagnating. It can't grow. It can't grow unless we import skills. Skills. There's a skills shortage. Skilled people are needed. And who are those skilled people? Well, people that couldn't speak a word of English, people that had no skills at all, who'd never had a job. They were illiterate in their own language. They were peasants. And these were the skills that were needed to help the economy grow. You're fucking kidding me, right? And so they had lists of supposed skills shortages, which included dishwashers, restaurant dishwashers, and people who would paint nails in beauty salons, and these were the supposed skills. There are a few skills, not very many, by the way, but a few skills. And the whole thing was a rort. It was all a load of bullshit. It was all just a front, just a whole pack of lies to bring in all these illiterate third world peasants, and they came over in there. Now, we were assured back then that no, only the best. I mean, if you don't speak really good English, you can't come in. If you don't have an internationally recognized qualification, no, that's it. So only the best of the best, only rocket scientists and engineers are coming. And of course, that was again another pack of lies. Now, any Western government privately will concede that at best, 5% of the migrant intake are actually skilled and integratable, and the rest of them not so. Now, the migrant intake has been, they say they're bringing people in on to come in to fill skill shortages. That's bullshit. But on top of that, these people, even if one of them does have any qualifications or even has some sort of competence in English, they're allowed to bring in several of their family members within 5 years of arriving, and sometimes are even given dispensations on that. They say, my family's being persecuted because they're all lesbians or something. And then, that's okay, you can bring them in. So you've got around half the intake, the overall intake coming in, are just family reunion. These people can bring their family members over. And these people have vast, they come from tribal villages. So their concept of family is like, fucking second and third cousins. And so their family can be 50 people, for Christ's sake. So it's not like, there's only one or two, like say a wife and a child or something. It's not just that, it's the whole village comes over. So, and then you get the refugees and asylum seekers, and then of the actual supposed skilled migrants, there's only a small proportion of those that are actually skilled and have anything useful to offer. Now, some of these aren't skill shortages, but they're attempts to reduce wages. For example, a particular skill set is needed, but it's in a place that's 250 miles outside of any city. Nobody really wants to live in these places, but they could easily attract people by offering a good enough income package. Which could include accommodation or could include whatever. but they're not prepared to do that. No, we don't want to pay any. We want to pay the minimum fucking wage, And the way we can do that is, well, we want the job filled. Then it could be like a stonemason, for example. We want the job filled, but we don't want to have to offer anything more than the minimum wage. So the way we're going to get around having to offer any more is to import a stonemason from some fucking third world country, and that'll solve it. So there are those sort of things going. So that's not skilled migration. That's I don't know, wage reduction immigration. That's also plays a big part in the immigration thing. But because of the dishonesty around the immigration, all that the Western countries have done is acquire millions upon millions, nearly 5 million in Australia's case, of people that are really just nearly all of them are on fucking welfare and so on. While they're supposed to be in the prime of their working life, people that have come from most of these third world countries, well, pretty much all of them, most of these third world countries, particularly if they came to Australia when they were over the age of 16, 20, 30 years down the track, they still don't speak a word of English. They go to their ghettos and so on, get the government benefits and handouts, and the list just goes on. They also form ghettos and have political action groups where they demand, the Indians and particularly adept at this, demanding sort of that they have these special grievances that require that they receive special dispensations. And there are now entire schools that effectively become Indian controlled schools with the caste system and the whole fucking thing going. It's insane, but there you go. But also it involves massive convulsions in society about handing over affirmative action programs to these people. Indians, for example, are being guaranteed jobs in the public service, over and above white people or the local people. And the public services at state and federal level are expanded just to provide jobs for these unwanted, unneeded Indians. So this is the thing. So what do we do with these people? Do we accept, even if mass migration was stopped, today in the next 5 minutes or so, it would still be a huge issue, not just here, but also in the United States and Britain and so on. Now, how could I've noticed that the government, particularly in Australia at least, they're more than happy to deport white people, but they seem to be suddenly get this terrible sort of moral dilemma situation where deporting brown and black people seems to be beyond them, no matter what, no matter how many crimes are committed by these brown or black people. It doesn't matter. They'll have armies of lawyers providing free legal aid and legal assistance and so on. The government even manages to fuck themselves up by providing generous legal aid funding to the illegal alien, and at the same time, so while the government is trying to get rid of them, the government's also funding the other side, spending millions on an illiterate third world peasant so they can stay. I mean, goodness me, the insanity of it, which is again shows just how much cost comes with this immigration racket. Massive costs, but very few benefits. And this ultimately, of course, involves a huge transfer of wealth away from white people to the brown and black immigrants. Coming now to what would repatriation sort of look like? Is repatriation even a possibility? Is it logistically feasible? There could be a few things. For example, if there's a vast number of immigrants or even students, particularly Indian and Chinese students that are involved in scam labour hire rackets, scam education rackets, and so on. And there are just so many fucking scams and rackets in these areas that and the government obviously doesn't want to do anything about it. Scams in rental accommodation, where legally you're only allowed to have 4 people in this particular property. but instead there are 30 people or something of Indians or Chinese living there, but the government doesn't do anything. The real estates use it as an excuse to jack up the rent because you've got that many more people living there, and landlords accept it because they're making more money. A lot of these landlords are politicians who now make the bulk of their income from property speculation and so on, and real estate speculation. So how if you start cracking down on well, not crack, just enforcing the existing laws, if you don't speak good quality English, you can't come. It doesn't matter whether you're a fucking refugee or not, you can't come. If you don't speak, if you haven't got a qualification or a credible work history, not some third world bullshit work, then you can't come. And if you still haven't been gainfully employed in your supposed area of expertise 5 years after here, then we're going to invite you to leave. If you try and send remittances back to the country of origin, India or Bangladesh or Pakistan, whatever it is, we're going to tax it at the rate of 50%. If you try and change courses, like you supposedly come over to do a course in such an education course and such, if you change the course, then you've changed the terms of your thing and you have to return and so on and so on. So they could be easily tightened up. And that if somebody wants to, any company or business wants to bring out a migrant worker, they have to prove that they're sponsoring somebody in an apprenticeship or a college course in Australia first, and things like this. So that there could be really quite small areas of tightening up and enforcement of existing laws, which could radically alter the makeup of not only the migrants coming in, but also the eligibility to stay, whether it be as students or work visas. Similarly, migrants coming in should I think all be put on limited work visas, again, unless they meet the standard, really a basic standard that they've got competent functional English and have a qualification and they have a needed skill. And if they don't have that, they shouldn't be, or if they can come in on a short-term work visa, 2 or 3 years and so on. But if you're coming here to do an education course, you can't also work. I think should be a requirement. So it's a disincentive for people to scam the system, which is so widespread now, out of control. And particularly they can do this to go and work in a labour hire scam, so they can effectively work, pretend to be working 15 hours a week, but in reality they're working 60 hours a week, but in return they're being given, through the labour hire scam, they're being given accommodation and food and so on, so that it's not appearing as money on like a paycheck. So this is one of the many ways they bypass the laws, and the government appears to have no desire to police and rigorously police or enforce the existing laws on this. And if they did, millions would have to leave Australia and the West generally. Similarly, if they couldn't send money back to their relatives overseas, that's a lot of the incentive to come to the West, because they've got no intention of integrating or anything like that. They've come to take, not to give, not to share, but to take. And we should be really clear on that. And that would taxing remittances back to the country of origin, that would be a big disincentive for people to come to Australia. But again, if you meet the high standard, well, not a high standard, you meet the required standard, you must speak good English and have a qualification, then that's a recognised qualification and a needed skill, and that's fine. It doesn't matter. Those sort of people are wanted and should be welcome at any time. But the illiterate peasant freeloaders that are there to dampen down wages and be part of these labour hire scams, they really do need to be repatriated. And I think repatriation could take place by virtual osmosis, I suppose, but just make it's not worth their while staying. A lot of these people only stay if they can repatriate money back to the relatives in fucking Bangladesh or something like that, or the peasant place they come from. The black gangs that form the black criminal gangs be as keen to expel them as they are the white people that I'm looking at this guy from, I think it was from England, and I wouldn't call him a hardened criminal, but he was he engaged in robbery, and then he'd had a punch up with a police officer and these sort of things, and he'd come to Australia with his parents when he was, I don't know, 5 years old or something like that, and they expelled him. I think it was back to somewhere in Britain. I think that they expelled him back there. But far more egregious crimes committed by black and brown people, and the government, no, we don't need to repatriate them. No, that's okay. But there's none of these free lawyers, NGO lawyers that would defend to the death the black person, the black criminal to be repatriated back to the country of origin. None of these people, this guy from Britain, he got no legal support. They couldn't wait to kick him out. I can see it. He engaged in criminal acts, and I think the prison term he'd served was like 12 months or maybe 18 months or something like that. And so that's the cutoff point. If you serve longer than 12 months, that can be the trigger. But it's only seen to be a trigger if you're white. If you're brown or black, it's not a trigger. It's only enforced if you're white, which again comes back to this equality under the law. Same thing as another guy, I think he came from, he might have been Serbia. Again, criminal acts to do with drugs, things like that. And the guy was in a bad way, and seriously fucked up. But he was expelled. But again, why isn't that same rigor of expulsion applied when it's a black or brown person? They seem to be far more cavalier when it's a white person. So there's a lot of issues to do with expulsion there. But if the laws were rigorously applied, if the remittances were taxed, and if there was a serious clampdown on people changing their courses and being employed through scam labour hire groups, straight away there'd be easily well over 1 million people just in Australia alone could be expelled. Similarly, with people using medical benefits, you're not supposed to be able to get medical benefits for I think it's 5 years. That should be increased to like 10 years, because that's another big thing where you bring over all your relatives who've got serious health issues, and then try and get the free medical care. Now that medical care is for citizens of the nation. It's not for freeloaders are coming in, but which means that the services are actually being rationed more and more and more, to the point now where the local citizens are struggling to access those services. And unless you're a brown and black peasant and thus a ideological victim, you can't get the services. So the people that aren't meant to have it in the first place are crowding out the ones who do. The second thing is, even though these people aren't meant to be getting these medical services, they're making special pleadings that they have life-threatening this or so and so that, which they probably had when they arrived anyway. And so rigorous health screening isn't taking place. Now it used to take place, but now it's not. And people with severe handicaps and severe health issues, all manner of health issues, are allowed to come into Australia and access the free medical care. So this is a real issue. Some of them are able to make arrangements with the government, down payment of $50,000, which then entitles them and their family to free medical care forever, just for a down payment of $50,000. It's insane. So these things could all be tightened up and make the West less attractive, and also to make once you hear in labour hire scams, repatriating or sending remittances back to the family, to make that very difficult or to heavily tax it. And again, you'd see easily 1 million plus people would leave Australia. Similar with the education scams that are going on. and people being employed under the table for cash in their Indian only or Chinese only or Philippine only communities and so on, to clamp down on that and get that. Also, people living communally. There's a place not far away from here where some Indian guy, no, it's actually a Chinese guy's bought a house here. It's a 6-bedroom, quite a large 6-bedroom house. But from the looks of it, he's got at least 25 people, Chinese, at least 25 people there. And they're like the labour hire scam workforce to go around and work at the cafe businesses the same investor is buying up. These businesses aren't viable as businesses unless he's got this effectively peasant slave labour he's imported, again through labour hire scams, inventing these supposed labour and skill shortages, or inventing a skill shortage. Well, because I'm Chinese, I can only employ people that only speak Chinese. Therefore, I'm going to declare Chinese speaking as a skill and then import shitloads of peasants because they suppose, this is bullshit. But these sort of things. So these types, so really repatriation, I think, could take place. And it could be done over a period of time, but the people that were left or remaining would be the ones that wanted to integrate, wanted to be here. They had skills, they had competencies, they had a real stake in the local society, and wanted to be part of the Western way of life and tradition. Free and fair elections, the rule of law, due legal process, and so on and so forth. And I think that needs to take place. And I think it's something we have to do. And at some point, if the West is to survive at all as a if you like, a wider civilization, it's going to have to be done. And if we don't do it, the West will cease to exist. You're being a Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.